What happens when faith is not only personal but lived inside a household? What changes when everyday relationships become part of spiritual life, not separate from it? And how does a home look when Christ is not just believed in, but practiced within it? Wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything. Masters, provide your slaves with what is right and fair, because you know that you also have a master in heaven. This section of Colossians shifts the focus from personal transformation to relational transformation. It brings faith into the structure of daily life, not as theory, but as practice, not in distant spiritual moments, but in homes, in families, in workplaces. Because spiritual life is not only expressed in worship gatherings, it is revealed in ordinary relationships. And this passage begins with one of the most misunderstood words in Scripture when taken out of context: submission. But here it is not about control, it is about order within relationship under Christ, because the phrase, as is fitting in the Lord, sets the foundation. Everything here is framed by Christ's presence, not cultural dominance, not personal power, but spiritual alignment. And then the instruction moves to husbands. Love your wives and do not be harsh with them. This is not passive emotion, it is active responsibility. Love that protects, love that respects, love that does not harm, love that reflects Christ's own self-giving nature. Because in the Christian framework, leadership is never separated from love, authority is never separated from care, and strength is never separated from gentleness. Then comes children. Obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. This is not about control. It is about learning structure within love, learning respect within formation, because families are not only relational units, they are environments of growth. And then fathers are addressed directly. Do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. This is a powerful correction, because authority without care leads to discouragement, and discipline without love leads to internal withdrawal. So Paul brings balance. Responsibility is mutual, care is essential, and influence must be life-giving, not harmful. Then the passage moves into a more complex structure of ancient society, slaves and masters, a relationship that existed in the historical context of the time. And here the instruction is deeply transformative. Slaves are told to obey sincerely, not only when watched, not for human approval, but with sincerity of heart, reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. This reframes labor entirely. Work is no longer just service to people, it becomes service to God, and that changes motivation. Because when work is connected to God, integrity becomes internal, not external. And then comes the promise, it is the Lord Christ you are serving. That means unseen work is still seen by God. Hidden effort still has meaning, and unnoticed faithfulness still has value. Because reward is not only human recognition, it is divine awareness. And then the warning. Anyone who does wrong will be repaid for their wrongs, and there is no favoritism. Meaning accountability is universal. No one is exempt. No role is above responsibility. Then masters are addressed. Provide what is right and fair. Because you also have a master in heaven. This immediately levels hierarchy, because earthly authority is placed under divine authority. No one is ultimate except God. So what looks like structure in society is actually accountability under God. Now, when we step back, this passage is not simply giving household rules, it is redefining relationships through a spiritual lens. It is showing that faith is not isolated from daily roles. It transforms how those roles are lived. Because the central idea is this: whatever your position, you are still under Christ. Wife, husband, child, parent, worker, leader, all are equal in accountability before God, and all are invited into transformation through Christ. That means spiritual maturity is not measured by position, but by character within position. A home becomes spiritual not by changing structure alone, but by changing how people live within it. Love replaces harshness, respect replaces rebellion, care replaces discouragement, fairness replaces exploitation, and integrity replaces hypocrisy. That is the vision, not perfection, but alignment. Now think about the deeper implication. If Christ is Lord over households, then no relationship is outside his influence. No interaction is too small for spiritual meaning. Even ordinary conversations, even daily responsibilities, even unseen labor, all becomes part of spiritual life. And that changes perspective. Because many people separate life into categories, spiritual and non-spiritual. But Colossians removes that separation. Everything is under Christ, so everything becomes meaningful. Even routine becomes sacred when lived in awareness of him. And this also brings correction, because power without responsibility becomes distortion, and submission without dignity becomes harm. So the passage creates balance, mutual accountability, mutual respect, mutual recognition of God above all roles. And that is why it ends with the reminder, you also have a master in heaven. That one statement reorders everything, because it means no one is ultimate except God. Not husband, not parent, not employer, not authority structure, all are under him. And that creates humility across all relationships, because everyone is accountable. Everyone is equal in spiritual standing. Everyone is under grace. So what does this look like in daily life? It looks like patience in conflict. It looks like fairness in responsibility. It looks like kindness in authority. It looks like diligence in work. It looks like respect in family. It looks like love in leadership. It looks like humility in position. Not because roles disappear, but because roles are transformed. Now imagine a household shaped by this mindset. Not perfect, but intentional. Not without tension, but guided by Christ-centered values. Where words are not careless, where actions are not selfish, where relationships are not exploitative, but shaped by awareness of God. That is the vision of Colossians 3 verse 18 to 4:1. Not to create rigid systems, but to create Christ-centered living environments, where faith is not confined to prayer moments, but expressed in daily interactions. Now, stepping back further, the passage is actually inviting a question. What happens when Christ becomes the center of every role you live? Because when he is central, authority becomes service, work becomes worship, relationships become responsibility, and daily life becomes spiritual expression. Not by changing everything externally, but by changing everything internally. That is the transformation this passage offers. Not escape from life, but renewal within life. And that is what makes it powerful, because it does not remove ordinary life, it fills it with meaning. So wherever you are, in family, in work, in leadership, in responsibility, the invitation remains the same. Live as one who is under Christ, and let that shape everything else. Because when Christ is Lord of the household, every role becomes a place of purpose. Thank you for watching this video. If this message encouraged you, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to see how faith transforms everyday life.